Hey there, Colette here, and in this video I am going to walk you through the most important gear that you need for filmmaking when you're starting out. So if you're a little bit stuck right now, if you haven't gotten started with filmmaking yet, it is probably because you think that you need a lot of fancy gear to get started with filmmaking, and that is simply not true. So in this video, we're going to go over the 7 most important pieces of gear that you need to get started, and one piece of gear that is super underrated, especially by beginners, but is absolutely mandatory to get started. I've been making films as a solo filmmaker since 2014, and I also teach filmmaking. So over the years, I've learned a lot about what exactly you need to get started and what you don't. So let's dig into this. But before we do, a reminder that if you find this video helpful, make sure to subscribe so you can get more videos about filmmaking, storytelling, creativity, and all the things that you need to know in order to make your most important creative dreams and goals come true. All right, now let's get to this. If you're missing even one of these elements, then it is seriously going to slow you down. And I even kind of recommend getting these pieces of gear in the order that I'm gonna tell you about them. So first, the most important piece of gear in your kit as a solo filmmaker is your computer. And I know that you might think that that's ridiculous because your camera, that has to be the most important piece of gear. Yes and no. Of course, you cannot make films without a camera, but your computer is where you're going to be doing the majority of the work. So if you're planning on investing money and you have a horrible computer, I mean, it's 10 years old and it's constantly crashing, then that is where you want to put your money first. Because as a solo filmmaker, the most important thing that you can do to get better and better and better is to be editing your own work, making small projects and editing. So your computer is your most important piece of gear. What comes next? Then your editing software. Now, a lot of us start out, in fact, I think all of us start out using free software. So we just use the software that's on the computer when it comes to us. For a lot of us, that's Movie Maker or iMovie. But to progress, you've got to get out of the free software as soon as possible. The free software is super limiting. It's also very frustrating. I have tried on multiple occasions to go back to iMovie after using professional software, and honestly, it makes me feel like an idiot. Like, I just want to throw my computer across the room when I'm using iMovie. So as soon as you possibly can, you want to start using professional editing software. This is going to make such a huge difference. Yes, there is a learning curve, but it is worth it. And honestly, I feel like the learning curve with professional software is actually like less than with the stuff that comes for free. So I recommend either Adobe Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. Resolve has a free version, which I believe you can use for up to 1080p. So I don't think you can edit 4K footage or export 4K footage with DaVinci Resolve, but check that one out. That is free. And then Adobe Premiere Pro is the one that I teach and that I use. It is an industry standard software for editing, so it is very good to get started with that software if you want to be working with other people in the future. Okay, what comes next? Next we have a mouse that doesn't suck. So a lot of people, when they start filmmaking, are editing on a laptop. That's completely normal. Most of us have laptops, and for most of us, we might even have to have a laptop for work. The thing is, if you are editing with a laptop and you are just trying to use the trackpad to edit, this is like the slowest possible way to edit. So make sure, no matter what, you have a mouse that doesn't suck for when you are video editing. Okay, now the next thing is your camera. Now, a lot of people think that to get started, you have to have a fancy camera. Like, you need to go and spend a couple $1,000s on a fancy camera to get started. And that is just not true. You can get started using your cell phone. Like, I challenge you for this evening. Go to Netflix, find one of your favorite old television shows. Like, I don't know, Friends, Seinfeld, whatever. Full House is a funny one to watch. Okay, and just take a look at the footage, right? Now compare it to the footage that you're able to capture, like just natively with your cell phone. The cell phone footage that you're able to capture now is much better in most regards. Obviously, there are some things that are better about the footage of the past. Most of that has to do with what's called dynamic range, but I am not going to get into that right now. But aside from dynamic range, in terms of your resolution, just color fidelity, saturation, etc., you can get amazing, amazing, amazing footage using just your cell phone. So if you've already got a cell phone that is half decent, that's what you can get started using. If you have a horrible old cell phone that you're planning on replacing anyway, then do a little bit of research and make sure your next cell phone is one that allows you to do decent video. Now, the next thing, it may or may not seem obvious, but it's super important. It is having a way to get your footage off of your camera. So if you're using a cell phone, now the reason I'm telling you this is because for some people this is going to be obvious, and for others this is like, going to be a breakthrough. And I know this because a friend of mine got started on TikTok, okay? And she was trying to take her footage off her cell phone, get it onto her computer over Wi-Fi. Now, this is the worst possible thing you can do. You need an easy and fast way to get your footage off of your phone or off of your DSLR onto your computer, and it has to be fast and it cannot be over Wi-Fi because that's going to take a million years. So for your cell phone, most of you have already a cable that you can connect your cell phone to your computer. It's a USB of some kind, and connect it to your computer and take the footage off. That being said, I don't find that to be the best way because it is a little bit slow. So if I were going to be doing a lot of filming with my camera, with my cell phone, then I would get an actual USB that would connect to the camera that I could actually film straight onto that USB and then stick it straight into my computer without having to use any special interfaces. And of course, if you're using a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, then what you're going to be shooting on is either a SD card or a micro SD card. And for most computers, you have an SD slot. You can just put your SD card straight into your computer, easy peasy. However, if you are using a Mac, especially the newer Macs, the ones that are not Pro, so I can't remember what those are called, notebooks or something like that, those do not have USB slots in many cases. So then you need, SD cards. Those do not have SD card slots. So you're going to need an SD card reader you're going to put your SD card into the reader, and then you're going to connect that to your computer. So I know this was a lot about just getting the footage from your camera onto your computer, but it is so important that this part of the process is easy, like fast, simple, easy. Why? Because if it's not, it slows you down from going from that really exciting shooting and creating mode into the next really exciting thing, which is editing. You don't want there to be this horrible break in the action just because getting the footage off your camera is super, super annoying. Okay, what comes next? The next thing, this is a little boring. It is, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a little boring, but it is so important, and that is having an external hard drive for backups. Okay, when you're starting out, when you're a beginner, you are not too worried about this because most of your footage is not going to be amazing, and that is perfectly okay. When we are beginners, nothing we make is amazing. We have to just keep going, and then our work will get a lot better, right? That's just how it works. But you want to get into the practice of backing up your footage because I'm telling you, the people that I know who do not back up their footage, they always lose it. I've heard so many horror stories about people who have shot very important projects, maybe for a client or personal projects, and often actually it's the personal projects that filmmakers lose, and they don't back them up. Now, when I am talking about a backup, it means you have two copies. So you have a copy either on your computer and on an external hard drive, or you have both of your copies on two separate external hard drives. So you want to have double backups. Basically, it's not a backup if you don't have another copy in the first place, right? So always have two copies of a project. I get it. When you're starting out, this may not seem important, and that is okay. But as soon as you start creating work that you think really matters to you, like even if you're shooting stuff of your kids or your family, back it up. You need to have more than one copy. So very important. As a tip, I only recommend two different hard drives. I recommend G Drive and I recommend LaCie. G Drive and LaCie. I do not recommend anything else for your backups because they will fail, really. Maybe SanDisk is okay as well, but like Seagate, no. Do not use Seagate or any of these other kind of like random brands for your backups. Use the professional ones. They are not that expensive. Trust me, they are not. Okay, what comes next? Next, super important, but not something you have to spend a lot of money on right away. In fact, you can do this for free, and that is a way to record audio. So really quick tip about recording audio. The number one thing about recording audio is that your microphone has to be relatively close to the subject for the audio to sound half decent, which means if you're shooting with your cell phone and you are 10 feet away from the person who's talking to you, your audio is not going to be any good. So you can't just use the audio that comes directly from your cell phone. Or if you're using a DSLR or mirrorless, often there's so much noise that comes from what's called a preamp. I won't get into that, but there's so much noise that comes from the camera itself that audio is basically garbage. And so what you can do is just use another cell phone. If you have a second cell phone, an old cell phone, you can record audio externally on that. And then any professional software, editing software, will allow you to synchronize your audio. Again, more on that another day, but for now, just know that you need a way to record audio. When you're first getting started, I recommend not actually dealing with audio right away. Get into that a bit later. But as soon as you're going to start recording interviews or you're going to do short narratives, you need a way to record audio. Now, before I give you the last, most important, super ultra critical piece of gear that you need to get started that is super underrated, I'm going to remind you that if you like this video, you should subscribe because there are going to be a lot more videos about filmmaking and storytelling and creativity coming soon. Okay, now on to the last piece of gear, and that is a tripod or a monopod. So this one here is a monopod, meaning rather than having one leg, rather than having three legs, it has one, and then it also just has these little kind of like, I'm gonna call them booster legs, so that if you get tired, you can still put it down and you don't have to hold on to it, right? It can still just stand there, okay? So monopod is great if you're doing a lot of what is called run and gun shooting, where you're just running around and shooting stuff and you're really operating on the fly. This is a Benro monopod. It is more pricey than what is required to get started. So you can also get started with just literally, this is my very first tripod. I still have it. I still use it. It's a $20 tripod. And yes, why do you need a tripod? Okay. You need to have some form of stabilization. Stabilization is how your images stay still, not wobbly. The number one hallmark of complete, total, absolute, utter beginner filmmaking is wobbly footage. It's just like, wow, wobbles all over the place and super long takes and just everything is wobbly. Take a look at a couple movies, a TV show, whatever. Just see how stable the footage is. It's not wobbling all over the place unless it's motivated, right? If there's a chase scene or a fight scene, yeah, then you're gonna have a lot of movement in the footage. It's gonna be kinetic. But for most scenes, you want your footage to be stable. Now, getting started, a lot of people think they need a gimbal. If you don't know what a gimbal is, then don't even worry about it. But a lot of people think they need to be moving their shot around all over the place. And when you are getting started, that is not the best way to get started because you need to master framing. And the best way to master framing is grabbing still shots, right? Not moving shots, still shots where you're focusing on the action within the frame and really creating beautifully framed shots that look wonderful. And in order to really do that, you need to have stable footage. Also, if you're going to be doing any kind of short narrative work or documentaries, interviews, filming yourself, tripod all the way, my friends. Now, I've created a filmmaking gear checklist for beginners, including extra tips for cell phone filmmakers. So if you want that gear checklist for beginners that includes some extra things not in this video as well as some tips, then go to storyenvelope.com/filmmakinggear, grab the free filmmaking gear checklist and get started right away practicing your filmmaking. And of course, leave a comment below letting me know what you think. Is there any gear that you still need? Do you have any questions? Was there something missing in this video? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And of course, subscribe to get more videos on filmmaking, storytelling, and creativity. All right, I will see you in the next video.